The executive and the unseen son. Arthur Sterling adjusted his tie for the third time, his hands trembling, as he stood at the entrance of the grand ballroom. Inside, soft classical music, the clinking of champagne glasses, and the hushed conversations of distinguished guests in black tie resonated. He took a deep breath before stepping in, forcing a smile onto his face. 6 months ago, Arthur held the position of CEO at one of the nation's most prosperous technology companies. His name graced every financial publication. His mobile buzzed constantly with audacious proposals and invitations to exclusive events. In his prime, he was a man of immense power, untouchable, or so he believed. At 30, Arthur attended this charity event not as a leading figure, but as a ghost of his past. After a catastrophic investment, his company collapsed, leading him to ruin and disgrace. The luxurious penthouse, the sports cars, and even the bespoke suits that once defined him had been sold. Only the soft hum of defeat echoed in his mind. As Arthur scanned the room, he spotted a familiar face at the far end. A lady with deep brown hair cascading over her shoulders, wearing a sophisticated black dress. A sharp pang hit his chest, his heart thumping. It's Martha. However, it wasn't just her presence that made him stop abruptly. Beside her, standing and holding her hand, was a little boy with soft blonde hair and piercing blue eyes. Eyes identical to those Arthur saw reflected in his own mirror. His breath hitched. A crushing sensation seized his chest. Impossible. It can't be. Martha hadn't seen him yet. But Arthur couldn't tear his gaze from the little boy. The strong resemblance was undeniable. His heart pounded intensely in his chest. Could this child be his son? What would you do if you suddenly encountered a child who looked exactly like you, years after a past relationship? What's the most unexpected surprise life has ever thrown your way? Share your thoughts below. Arthur struggled to breathe. His heart hammered so intensely in his chest that he could barely hear the soft conversations around him. He kept his gaze fixed on the little boy standing next to Martha, holding her hand and observing the entire room with interest. The strong resemblance was undeniable. Identical deep blue eyes, the same curve of his forehead, and even the way the little one tilted his head slightly when thinking. It was like looking at a younger version of himself. He took a hesitant step forward, yet his feet felt rooted to the floor. Thoughts of Martha filled his head, her joyful expression, her laughter, the tenderness of her touch. In that instant, he relived the moment he last saw her, tears in her eyes, as he confessed he wasn't ready to be a father. Arthur found himself needing to move through the room, weaving past groups of people, until he stopped a short distance from her. As she turned her head, Martha saw him, and her expression instantly changed. She stiffened, automatically squeezing the boy's hand. "Martha," Arthur whispered, barely audible. Martha's gaze was fixed. "Arthur." With determination, she swallowed and looked down at the little boy. The little boy observed with evident interest. Arthur inquired, his voice trembling. "Who is he?" Martha's jaw tightened. "Oh, Simon!" Arthur's heart raced. "He's 3 years old," Martha replied sharply when asked for his age. A tremor ran through Arthur as he took a deep breath. 3 years. All the calculations aligned perfectly. He felt a crushing sensation in his chest. He looked at the boy again, his eyes pleading. "Is he?" Martha's expression was severe. "Arthur," she whispered, articulating his name. "Is he mine?" His eyes sparkled with emotion before his face turned serious. "That's an inappropriate question," she stated in a low, forceful tone. "You left, didn't you? You didn't care." "Did you know?" Arthur murmured, his cheeks flushing with fury. "I begged you to pay attention. I tried to tell you, but you were too busy closing deals and expanding your empire to notice." Arthur clenched his teeth. She was right. His excessive ambition had blinded him, isolating him completely. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Arthur whispered. "But Simon is my son. I have a right to know." Martha's eyes blazed. "Really?" she repeated sadly. "Where were you when your son took his first steps? During those nights of anguish and crying from nightmares, Aunt Carmen always supported me. Aunt Carmen taught him how to ride a bike. Aunt Carmen accompanied his friend to school plays and stayed awake by his side when he was ill." Arthur felt a pang in his stomach at the mention of Aunt Carmen. He was familiar with the name. Last year, a pediatric surgeon by that name had been featured on the front page of a medical publication. The individual was almost revered. Martha watched Simon kick the ball across the lawn, and in that moment, her eyes reflected a subtle calm. In a soft voice, she affirmed, "Don't be mistaken, Arthur. His father is Aunt Carmen." Arthur felt a sharp pang in his chest. He had squandered a considerable amount of time. Martha hesitated, then asked, "Does he know about my existence?" "Never." Arthur inhaled sharply. He looked at Simon and asked if he thought he had the right to know the truth. Martha's jaw hardened. "You actually left?" Arthur's voice fractured. "I didn't know that information, but now I do, and I want to fix it." Martha shook her head. "It's not as simple as it seems." Arthur took a step forward. "Allow me the chance to be part of his life. Please." Martha's eyes gleamed with emotion. For an instant, she seemed to hesitate, until Simon shouted from the other end of the room, "Mommy, look!" Seeing Simon score a goal, Martha's expression softened. A gentle smile appeared on her face as she waved. Arthur's heart ached. Martha let out a sigh before saying, "I can't commit to anything right now." She concluded, "However, perhaps you could consider attending his football match next Saturday." Arthur's eyes widened. "Really?" he confirmed, nodding. "It's just a match, nothing more." Cautious hope swelled in Arthur's chest. Although it wasn't much, it was a start. "Thank you so much," he whispered. Martha turned to walk away. However, Arthur called out to her, "Martha, wait!" She looked over her shoulder, and Arthur affirmed that this time he wouldn't disappear. He promised solemnly. After a long moment, Martha scrutinized the situation before nodding slightly. Then she walked to Simon and took his hand. Arthur watched them walk away. After a long time, he felt a stirring within him, a spark of optimism. Perhaps he hadn't completely lost everything after all. What do you think will be Arthur's first step to prove his commitment to Simon? What's the most surprising small gesture that ever changed your perspective on someone? Share your experiences below. Arthur waited for Martha in the hotel car park at 6 in the morning. He'd been awake all night, reading and rereading those emails he'd never seen. When he saw her arrive with Simon by the hand, he approached her, determined. "We need to talk." "I'm working, Arthur. It's about the emails." Martha stopped dead. She looked at Simon, who was playing with his toy car, oblivious to the tension. "Simon, go with Aunt Carmen. Tell Mummy I'll be there in 5 minutes." The boy nodded and ran towards the hotel entrance. Martha turned to Arthur, her jaw clenched. "Which emails?" "The 5 you sent me 3 years ago. I found them last night." "Oh, now you found them. How convenient." "I swear I never saw them, Martha. My corporate email is full of rubbish, and I hardly ever check it." "Liar." The word exploded from her. 2 passing employees turned to look. "Your wife answered the last email," Martha continued, lowering her voice but not her fury. "She told me you'd read everything and didn't want to know anything about the baby." Arthur felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. "Eleanor wrote to you? She offered me money to keep quiet. £20,000 to never contact you again." "It can't be." "It can't be what?" That your perfect wife wanted to protect her marriage? Or that a hotel employee like me didn't even deserve a reply from you? Arthur ran his hands through his hair, trying to process what he was hearing. Martha, I never knew. Of course not. Because it was easier that way, wasn't it? Sleeping with an employee during a storm, and then pretending it never happened. It wasn't like that. Oh, really? Then explain why you disappeared the next day without even saying goodbye. Arthur fell silent because he had no answer for that. It had been exactly like that. He had left early, without a word, trying to convince himself it had just been a night of weakness. Is Simon my son? He asked directly. Martha looked at him as if he were an idiot. What do you think? I want you to tell me. Yes, Arthur. Simon is your son. Your son whom you've never seen grow up, who doesn't know who you are, who, when he asks about his dad, I tell him he's working very far away. The words hurt more than he expected. Arthur looked towards the hotel, where Simon had disappeared through the revolving doors. Why didn't you accept Eleanor's money? Because I don't need your money. I needed you to know you had a son, but I see that doesn't matter to you either. Yes, it does. Really? Is that why you've been here for 2 days, spying on him like a stalker instead of approaching him like a man? Arthur didn't know what to say. She was right. I want to get to know him, he finally said. For what? To leave again when you get bored of playing dad? You won't leave, liar. In a week, you'll go back to your life in London, to your businesses, to your new bachelor pad. And Simon will be left wondering what he did wrong for the man who visited him to stop coming. I swear, it's not like that. Martha pulled out her phone and showed him a photo. It was Simon sleeping with a drawing in his hands. On the paper were 3 figures, a woman, a child, and a tall man in a tie. Do you know what he told me when he drew this? Mummy, when is my daddy coming home from work? He's 3, Arthur. 3 years dreaming of a dad who didn't even know he existed. The image shattered him. Arthur reached out to touch the phone, but Martha pulled it away. Don't touch me. Martha, please. No, Arthur. You had your chance 3 years ago. I'm not going to let you hurt my son. He's my son too. Oh, really? Where were you when he got pneumonia at 6 months old? Where were you when he said his first word? When he took his first steps? When he cried all night because the other children at nursery had dads? Each question was like a slap. Arthur knew he had no answer for any of them. Let me make up for lost time. You can't make up for it, Arthur. Time can't be recovered. Martha began to walk towards the hotel. I have to work, and you have to decide if you really want to be a father, or if you're just feeling guilty. What's the difference? Martha turned one last time. A real dad wouldn't have to ask. She left him standing there in the car park, with the feeling that he had just lost something he didn't even know he had. This is a raw and emotional confrontation. What do you think Arthur's next move will be to win Martha's trust and connect with Simon? What's the most difficult truth you've ever had to face about your own past? Share your reflections below. The next few days were strange. Arthur didn't directly approach Martha or Simon, but he also didn't leave the hotel. He stayed there, observing from afar, trying to understand how his son's life worked. He discovered that Simon had breakfast every day in the hotel cafe with Carmen, while Martha started her shift, that he liked to draw with red and blue crayons, that he always asked for extra jam on his toast. He also discovered that he was a popular child. The hotel employees treated him like an adorable mascot. The porter kept sweets in his pocket. The housekeepers left him towels folded into animal shapes. Even the chef prepared him happy face pancakes. But what caught his attention most were the drawings. Carmen hung them on the cafe wall as if it were an art gallery. Arthur approached one morning to see them better. All had the same theme: a house, a woman who was obviously Martha, a small child, and always, always, a tall man by their side. Beautiful drawings, aren't they? Carmen had appeared beside him with a cup of coffee. Does Simon draw them? Every day. That child has an impressive imagination. Arthur pointed to one of the male figures. Who is that man? His dad. Well, the dad he imagines. Martha tells him he's working far away, so Simon makes him up. Sometimes he's a pilot, other times a doctor, sometimes a policeman. Never asks why he doesn't come. Of course he asks, but Martha is very clever. She tells him that some dads have to work very far away so their children can have everything they need. Arthur remained silent, looking at the drawings. In one of them, the man held a suitcase and was boarding a plane. In another, he wore a stethoscope around his neck. All were professions that required travel or being away from home. Can I keep one? Carmen looked at him strangely. Why? It reminded me of my own drawings as a child. It wasn't entirely a lie. Arthur had also drawn imaginary parents when his own father was constantly traveling for business. Carmen unpinned the pilot drawing and gave it to him. But don't tell Simon. He'll be sad if he sees one is missing. Arthur went up to his room with the paper in his hand. He spread it on the bed and studied it as if it were an important document. The strokes were firm for a 3-year-old. The pilot had large eyes and a smile, black hair, and a blue jacket. At the bottom of the drawing, in wobbly letters, it said, "My daddy the pilot." His phone rang. It was his father. "Gerald, how much longer are you going to be playing tourist in Brighton?" "I'm not playing, Dad. The Davies are asking about next week's meeting. We need to close that contract." "Send Robert. He can handle that." "You're not Robert, Arthur. The clients want to talk to you." Arthur closed his eyes. For years it had been like this. Him chasing contracts, meetings, numbers on spreadsheets. Meanwhile, his own son was growing up, inventing a father who flew aeroplanes. "Dad, I need to tell you something. If it's about Eleanor and the divorce, you've told me enough already. That woman turned you soft. It's not about Eleanor. It's about... I have a son." Silence on the other end of the line. "What do you mean you have a son?" "His name is Simon. He's 3. His mom worked at the hotel I'm staying at." "Are you telling me you slept with an employee and now she turns up with stories?" "They're not stories, Dad. He's my son." "Did you get a paternity test?" "I don't need a test. Just look at him." "Arthur, please, how much is she asking for?" "She's not asking for anything. In fact, she doesn't want me near him." "Perfect. Then leave her alone and come back to London." "I can't do that." "Why not? You have no legal obligation." "Because he's my son," Arthur had shouted. He took a deep breath and lowered his voice. "He's my son, and I didn't know he existed. I lost 3 years of his life, Dad. I'm not going to lose any more." "Arthur, use your head. That woman can ruin you. She can ask for money. She can blackmail you, like Eleanor did, right?" "What does Eleanor have to do with this?" Arthur told him about the intercepted emails, the money offer, everything. His father was silent for a long moment. "Eleanor protected your marriage and your assets. Eleanor took away my chance to know my son, my boy. In the real world, decisions have consequences. If you slept with that woman, it was your mistake. But you don't have to bear the consequences your whole life." Arthur looked at the drawing on the bed. "My daddy the pilot." "I've made my decision, Dad." "Which decision?" "I'm staying here for as long as it takes, and I'm not coming back until my son knows who I am." He hung up the phone and stared at the drawing until night fell. What do you think Arthur will confront Eleanor about? And how will she react? What's the most difficult conversation you've ever had with a family member about a past mistake? Share your experiences below. Arthur drove 5 hours from the coast to London with one idea in his head: confront Eleanor. He arrived at his old apartment unannounced, using the key he still had on his keyring. Eleanor was in the kitchen, sipping white wine and checking her tablet. When she saw him enter, she barely looked up. "I thought you'd changed the locks. Hello, Arthur." What a surprise. Why did you intercept Martha's emails? Eleanor carefully placed her glass on the table, as if she'd been expecting that question for 3 years. Straight to the point. I like it. Answer me, because it was the right thing to do. The right thing. You hid from me that I had a son. Eleanor stood up and walked to the window overlooking the city. She wore one of those expensive dresses she loved so much. Perfect makeup, even though it was Sunday night. I saved you from ruining your life over a one-night stand. That mistake has a name. His name is Simon. Oh, really? Have you met him yet? Played the responsible daddy? The way she said it, with that mocking smile, infuriated him. Do you know what Martha told me? That you offered her money to keep quiet. £20,000. A bargain, considering what child support would have cost you for 18 years. How could you do that? Eleanor turned to him, her eyes blazing. How could I what? Save our marriage? Protect your reputation? Prevent that woman from blackmailing you for the rest of your life? She wasn't blackmailing me. She just wanted me to know I had a son. Please, Arthur, are you really that naive? Women like her always have a plan. Women like her, employees, working class, basic education. What do you think she wanted when she slept with you? True love? Arthur felt like screaming at her, but he restrained himself. Was he not there because of Eleanor? Did you read all the emails? Of course. Even the one when he was born? Eleanor hesitated for the first time. Yes. And you felt nothing, not even curiosity? I felt relief. Relief that that woman had understood the message and wouldn't bother us anymore. Arthur sat on the sofa where he'd lived for 2 years. Everything felt strange now. Too clean. Too cold. Do you know what's the saddest thing about all this, Eleanor? What? That you're not even sorry. Sorry for what? For being the only one who used her head in that situation? For taking away 3 years with my son? Eleanor poured herself more wine, her hand barely trembling. If you wanted to be a father so much, we could have had children together. But we didn't, because you always said it wasn't the right time. First business, then the new house, then the trip to Europe. There was always something more important. Arthur remained silent because she was right about that. For 5 years of marriage, he had postponed fatherhood again and again. But it still didn't give you the right to decide for me. No. And did it give you the right to sleep with another woman? No, that was my mistake. But what you did was worse. Worse? Protecting what we built together? What we built was a lie, Eleanor. And we both knew it. She stood looking at him from the window. What are you going to do now? Move to the coast? Play weekend dad? I don't know yet. That child doesn't know you, Arthur. To him, you're a stranger. Because of you. Because of both of us. You for being irresponsible, and me for being protective. But it's done now. Arthur stood up from the sofa. I'm here for my things, whatever's left in the study. Are you leaving the apartment? I'm leaving London. For how long? I don't know. As long as it takes. Eleanor put down her glass and approached him. Arthur, think carefully. You have a company, responsibilities, a life built here. I have a son who doesn't know me. Children aren't the only important thing in life. For me, they are. Arthur packed his books, some family photos, and the clothes still in the wardrobe. Eleanor remained in the kitchen, finishing her wine. When he finished packing, he approached to say goodbye. Eleanor, what? When Martha wrote to you the last email, the day Simon was born, what exactly did you reply? Eleanor didn't meet his gaze. I told her you'd read everything and didn't want to know anything about the baby. That if she contacted you again, you'd take legal action. You told that to a woman who had just given birth alone? Arthur, you told that to my son's mother? Eleanor barely nodded. Arthur picked up his suitcases and headed for the door. I hope you've slept well these past 3 years. And now what? Are you going to hate me forever? Arthur stopped at the door. I won't hate you, Eleanor. but I won't forgive you either." He closed the door and didn't look back. What do you think Arthur's next challenge will be in trying to connect with Simon, given Martha's emotional walls? What's the biggest obstacle you've ever faced in trying to rebuild a relationship? Share your stories and advice below. Arthur returned to a coastal town with 2 suitcases and a bank account he had transferred to a local branch. He had no plan, only the certainty that he wouldn't leave without getting to know his son. But Martha kept avoiding him. He'd spent a week trying to approach her. He sent messages she didn't answer. He waited for her in the hotel car park, but she used the staff entrance. He had even tried talking to Carmen, but the woman feigned ignorance. It was Friday when things changed. Arthur was having breakfast on the terrace when he saw Martha rush out of the hotel with a small suitcase. Her face was distraught, as if she'd been crying. She got into a taxi and left. "What happened to Martha?" he asked Carmen. "She was offered a job in Brighton at a 5-star hotel, a very good opportunity." Arthur felt as if the ground moved beneath his feet. "Is she leaving?" "I don't know. She has until Monday to decide. And Simon? He's with her. They went to think it over for the weekend." Arthur didn't sleep all night. On Sunday morning, he was waiting in the lobby when Martha returned. Simon was asleep in her arms, clutching a dolphin plush toy. "We need to talk," Arthur told her. "There's nothing to talk about. Are you going to Brighton?" Martha looked at him, tired. "Perhaps." "Why?" "Because it's a good opportunity. Because Simon can grow up in a better place. Because we have no future here." "Do you have a future with me?" "No, Arthur. You have a life in London. This is just temporary guilt." Martha headed towards the lifts, but Arthur followed her. "I waited 5 years for Eleanor to have children. 5 years postponing fatherhood for work, for travel, for money. And when I finally decided I was ready, it was too late for us." Martha stopped. "I'm not leaving here, Martha. I resigned from the company. I sold the apartment. Everything I own is in those 2 suitcases. Are you mad? Probably. But I'm not going to make the same mistake twice." Simon woke up in his mother's arms and looked at Arthur with curious eyes. "Who is he, Mummy?" Martha hesitated. Arthur knelt down to the boy's level. "Hello, Simon. I'm Arthur. Are you a pilot?" The question disarmed him. Arthur looked at Martha, whose eyes were filled with tears. "No, I'm not a pilot, but I'd like to be your friend. Do you know about airplanes?" "Some. Do you like airplanes?" "Yes, I want to fly very high." Arthur smiled for the first time in days. "I liked airplanes too when I was your age." Martha cleared her throat. "Simon, go with Aunt Carmen. Mummy needs to talk to Mr. Arthur." "Will you tell me about airplanes later?" Simon asked Arthur. "Of course." The boy ran off. Martha and Arthur were left alone in the lobby. "Did you really resign?" "Yes." "And your dad?" "What did he say?" "That I'm mad. That I'm going to ruin my life for a woman and a child I don't even know. Maybe he's right." "He's not. My life was already ruined. I just hadn't realized it." Martha sat on one of the armchairs. She looked exhausted. "Arthur, this isn't a game. Simon is a real child with real needs. You can't just show up with gifts and promises when you feel guilty and disappear when it passes. I'm not leaving." "How can I be sure?" "Because I'm staying here. I'm going to look for work on the coast. I'm going to rent a flat near the hotel. I'm going to be present every day. And what if in 6 months you get bored? If you miss your old life? It won't happen. How do you know?" Arthur sat beside her. "Because I haven't slept for 3 days thinking you were going to take my son away from me. Because when I saw him asking me about airplanes, I felt something I had never felt before. Because for the first time in my life, I have something more important than work." Martha remained silent for a long moment, stirring her coffee with a spoon. "The Brighton job pays very well. I can help financially. I don't want your money, Arthur. I already told you that." "Then what do you want?" "I want you to show you can be consistent. that you can be here when Simon is sick, when he has nightmares, when he asks difficult questions about why his dad wasn't there for the first 3 years of his life. I'll be there. Do you promise me? I promise you. Martha looked him in the eyes for the first time in days. One chance, Arthur. Just one. If you mess it up, we're going to Brighton, and you'll never see us again. I won't mess it up. I hope not. She stood to leave, but Arthur stopped her. Can I ask you something? What? Did you ever think about me during these 3 years? Martha smiled sadly. Every day, every time Simon asked about his dad. She walked towards the cafe where Simon was waiting for her with Carmen. Arthur remained sitting there, watching his son eat cereal with the spoon upside down, and realized he had a lot to learn. This is a critical turning point. What do you think will be Arthur's biggest challenge in proving his consistency and commitment to Martha and Simon? What's the most important lesson you've learned about earning trust after a difficult past? Share your thoughts and advice below. Arthur had been living in a small flat 3 blocks from the hotel for 2 weeks. He had started working as an independent consultant, managing projects from his laptop. Life was simpler, calmer, but most importantly, he could see Simon. Every day. He was no longer the stranger in the lobby. Simon would wave to him when he arrived at the hotel. He'd show him his new drawings. He'd tell him about the dolphins he'd seen on Discovery Channel. Arthur had learned that his son was curious, talkative, and had an impressive memory. But he still didn't know he was his dad. It was Tuesday night when Martha called him, her voice broken with panic. Arthur, I need your help. What's wrong? Simon is very ill. He has a very high fever and won't stop vomiting. I'm taking him to the hospital. Which hospital? St. George's. I'm on my way. Arthur arrived at the hospital in 15 minutes. He found Martha in the waiting room, crying silently. Her blouse was stained, and her hair was disheveled. How is he? I don't know. The doctors aren't telling me anything, only that they're running tests. Arthur sat beside her. He wanted to hug her, but he didn't know if he had the right. How long has he been ill? He started with a low fever yesterday. I thought it was a normal cold, but this afternoon he got much worse. Have you eaten anything? Martha shook her head. I can't eat. I'm too scared. A young doctor emerged from the emergency area and approached them. Mrs. Rivas. Yes, doctor. How is my son? He has a severe gastrointestinal infection, but he's stable now. We've given him fluids and medication. He'll need to stay hospitalized for a couple of days. Can I see him? Of course, he's awake and asking for you. Martha quickly stood up, but the doctor stopped her. One more question. Is there a family history of digestive problems on the father's side? Martha looked at Arthur, not knowing what to say. Yes, Arthur replied. My family has a history of sensitive bowels. I had similar problems as a child. The doctor took note. Perfect. That helps us with the treatment. Are you the father? Yes. It was the first time he had said it aloud. They entered the room together. Simon was connected to an IV drip, but smiled when he saw them. Mummy, Arthur. Hello, champ. How are you feeling? My tummy hurt a lot, but it's better now. Why are there so many wires? Martha sat on the bed and stroked his hair. It's so you get better faster, my love. Can I go home tomorrow? The day after tomorrow, if all goes well, the doctor said. But you have to stay here so we can look after you properly. Simon pouted. Are you going to stay with me? Arthur looked at Martha. I'll stay, she said. And Arthur too? I'll stay too, Arthur replied without thinking. The doctor explained that only one accompanying person could stay overnight, but they could take turns. Martha insisted on staying the first night. Arthur went to his flat to get clean clothes for her and some food. When he returned, Simon was asleep, and Martha was crying on the room's armchair. What happened? The test results. He has a genetic condition, Something called infant irritable bowel syndrome. Is it serious? It's not serious, but it's chronic. He'll have episodes like this every so often. He needs a special diet, medication, regular checkups. Arthur sat beside her. Is that why the doctor asked about family history? Yes. It's hereditary. Did I pass it on to him? Martha nodded. The doctor says it's very common, that with proper care, he can lead a normal life. Arthur looked at his sleeping son, so small and fragile with all those wires. How much do the treatments cost? I don't know yet, but the hotel's health insurance doesn't cover everything. Don't worry about that. I'll take care of it. Arthur, it's not charity. It's my responsibility. He's my son, and he has my genetic condition. Martha remained silent. I feel so guilty, she said after a while. Why? For not having looked for you more, for having accepted the rejection so easily. If you had been here from the beginning, maybe we would have detected this earlier. It's not your fault. Of course it is. Simon is my responsibility. It was your responsibility. Now it's ours. Martha looked at him with eyes red from crying. Are you really going to stay? Even if this is complicated, even if Simon needs special care, especially because of that, the doctors will want to talk to you too. They'll ask for your medical history, tests. I'll do them all. And the appointments will be monthly, and the special diets. And crises like this will happen again. I'll be here for all of them, not because I feel guilty, but because I want to be here. Martha lay back on the armchair and closed her eyes. I'm so tired. Go to sleep. I'll stay awake in case he needs anything. Are you sure? Sure. Arthur spent the night watching his son sleep, thinking about all the lost time. When Simon woke up at 4 a.m. asking for water, it was Arthur who got up to give it to him. Arthur, what's wrong, champ? Why did you stay here? Arthur didn't know what to say for a moment. Because you matter a lot to me. Like Mummy? Yes, like your mummy. Simon went back to sleep with Arthur's hand in his. This is a significant step for Arthur. What impact do you think this shared vulnerability and Arthur's commitment will have on Martha's trust? What's the most powerful example of a parent stepping up you've ever witnessed? Share your thoughts below. Simon left the hospital on a Thursday morning with a list of medications and a strict diet. Arthur had spent the last 2 nights studying everything about infant irritable bowel syndrome, taking notes as if it were a final exam. He can't have dairy, fried food, or processed sweets, he explained to Martha as they walked towards the taxi. And he has to take the probiotic every day with breakfast. I know, Arthur. I talked to the doctor too. Sorry, I just want to make sure I understand everything. Simon was in Martha's arms, still weak, but in better spirits. Can I play in the pool now? Not until next week, my love, his mum told him. And eat ice cream? Dairy-free ice cream. Arthur's going to find special ice cream for you. Really? Simon looked at Arthur with excitement. Of course, we'll find delicious ice cream that won't hurt you. That weekend, Arthur became an expert in food for children with sensitive bowels. He went to 3 different supermarkets looking for almond milk, coconut yogurt, and gluten-free biscuits. He even learned how to make oat flour pancakes. On Sunday, he took Simon to the park near the hotel. It was the first time they had gone out alone. Can I go on the swings? Of course, but gently. You're still recovering. Arthur pushed the swing softly, watching Simon laugh with each movement. Other dads played with their children nearby. Some looked at him curiously, wondering if he was new to the neighborhood. Arthur, do you have children? The question caught him off guard. Why do you ask that? Because you play with me like my friends' dads play with them. Arthur stopped the swing and knelt in front of Simon. Would you like me to be your dad? Simon looked at him with those big, serious eyes. You want to be my dad more than anything in the world. But you're not going to go away to work like the dad I used to imagine, are you? The question broke his heart. "I'm not going anywhere, Simon. I'm going to be here with you and your mummy." Simon got off the swing and hugged him. "So I don't have to imagine a dad anymore?" "No, champ. You don't have to imagine anything anymore." "Daddy!" Simon shouted, running towards the slide. "Look how high I can go!" That word, Daddy, resonated in Arthur's chest like an echo. For the first time in his life, someone had called him that. And it felt good. It felt right. When they returned to the hotel, Martha was waiting for them in the cafe. "How was it?" "Mummy, Arthur is my daddy," Simon announced before Arthur could say anything. Martha looked at them both with a mix of surprise and nervousness. "Oh, really?" "Yes, he told me at the park, and he's not going far away to work." Simon ran to Carmen to tell her the news, leaving the adults alone. "Did you tell him you were his dad?" He asked if I wanted to be. I couldn't lie to him. "Arthur, this is very serious. Children don't understand concepts like trying or seeing what happens. For him, dad means forever. And for me too." Martha remained silent, stirring her coffee with the spoon. "Are you upset?" "I'm not upset. I'm scared." "Of what?" "That this is too good to be true. That in a few months, you'll realize that being a dad is harder than you thought." Arthur sat opposite her. "Martha, do you know what was the hardest thing about these past few days in the hospital?" "What?" "Seeing my son sick and knowing it was because of something I inherited. Realizing that for 3 years, every time he got sick, you had to face it alone. That's over now." "No, it's not. Time has passed, but not the responsibility. Simon will have medical episodes for the rest of his life. He'll need checkups, special diets, medication. He'll have good days and bad days, I know. And I'll be there for all of them. Not because I feel guilty, but because I want to be there." Martha looked up from her coffee. "And what if it's harder than you imagine? If there are sleepless nights, tantrums, awkward questions, then we'll face it together." "Together?" Arthur realized what he had said. He hadn't just talked about his relationship with Simon, but about the three of them as a family. "If you want to." "Arthur, Simon and I are a package deal. You can't just take the easy part." "I don't want just the easy part. What do you want?" Arthur looked to where Simon was showing his drawings to Carmen. "I want to wake up every morning knowing my son is safe. I want to teach him to ride a bike, help him with his homework, hold him when he's sick. And with me? With you, I want to build something real, without rushing, without impossible promises. Just day by day." Martha smiled for the first time in days. "Do you know that being a dad isn't just about the pretty moments in the park? I'm learning. And that Simon can be very stubborn when he doesn't want to eat his vegetables. I'm learning that, too. And that he's going to ask you why you weren't there for the first 3 years of his life." Arthur nodded. "I've already thought about that. I'm going to tell him the truth. That his dad was a fool who didn't know he existed, but that when he found out, he came running to meet him. And what if it's not enough? Then we'll work together to make it enough one day." Simon ran back to them. "Daddy, help me with my drawing. I want to draw one where all three of us are together." Arthur looked at Martha, and she nodded. "Of course, champ. Let's make the most beautiful drawing in the world. This is such a powerful and emotional step forward. What profound impact do you think this new commitment will have on Arthur and Martha's relationship? What's the most important lesson you've learned about the true meaning of family beyond traditional definitions? Share your thoughts below." That night, Arthur hung the new drawing on his fridge door. It was no longer a child imagining a dad. It was a real family, with their names written below each figure. Daddy, Mummy, Simon. 6 months later, Arthur woke up at 5 in the morning to Simon standing by his bed. "Daddy, my tummy hurts." It was no longer panic. It was routine. Arthur got up, took his temperature, and prepared the chamomile tea the doctor had recommended. Simon curled up on the sofa with his favorite blanket, while his dad placed a warm compress on his stomach. "It'll pass soon. In a little while, champ. Do you want me to read you a story?" The pirates? The pirates. Arthur had bought a 2-bedroom flat a block from the hotel. It wasn't luxurious like his old place in London, but it had what mattered. A room for Simon full of books and toys, a kitchen where they could cook together, and a living room where the three of them would sit and watch films on Sundays. Martha arrived at 7, as she did every morning before her shift at the hotel. "How's he this morning?" "Better. The pain's gone." She approached to kiss Simon on the forehead and Arthur on the lips. There had been no marriage proposal or dramatic declarations, just days accumulating, routines becoming natural, trust growing slowly. "Are you coming to lunch with us?" "Of course. Simon wants you to teach him how to make those weird sandwiches you like. The turkey and avocado ones. Those very ones." Arthur had started his own consulting firm from the coast. He didn't earn as much as before, but he lived a calmer life. His clients were happy. His son was healthy most days, and Martha looked at him each morning as if she truly believed he was going to stay. "Daddy, are we going to the beach today?" "If you feel well after breakfast, we'll go." "And Mummy's coming with us?" "If Mummy wants." Martha smiled while making coffee. "Mummy always wants." At 9, the three of them were walking along the beach. Simon chased seagulls, while Arthur and Martha followed closely behind. The boy had grown considerably in those months. He was no longer the timid hotel baby, but a confident child who knew he had a daddy and a mummy who looked after him. "What are you thinking about?" Martha asked him. "That a year ago I was in an office in London, bitter about the divorce, and not knowing I had a son. Do you regret it?" "Missing the first 3 years, yes. Being here now, never." A ball rolled to his feet. Simon came running after it. "Daddy, kick it!" Arthur kicked the ball back. His son passed it to Martha, who returned it to Simon. A perfect triangle on the sand. "Do you know what he told me yesterday?" Martha commented as they played. "What?" "That he doesn't remember what it was like before, when he didn't have a daddy. Is that good or bad? It's real. Children live in the present. To him, you've always been here." "I wish that were true." "It's true since it mattered." A group of tourists passed by, taking family photos. Arthur watched them and wondered if he and Martha looked like a family from the outside. If anyone could guess that their story had begun with absences and secrets. "Martha, yes? Do you still think about going to Brighton?" "Sometimes. When Simon has a very bad medical crisis or when money gets tight." "And what makes you stay?" Martha pointed towards Simon, who was now building a sandcastle. "Seeing him happy. Seeing that he has a daddy who gets up at 5 in the morning when his tummy hurts. Seeing that I don't have to face everything alone." "Just for Simon?" "No, for me too. Because with you, I feel like the woman I want to be, not just a single mum who struggles all the time." Arthur kissed her on the beach, with their son playing nearby, and seagulls crying overhead. It wasn't a scene from a romantic movie. It was better. It was real life. "Daddy, Mummy, come see my castle!" They ran to Simon, who had built an elaborate fortress with towers and moats. "Who lives in the castle?" Arthur asked. "The three of us. And we have a dragon that protects us from monsters." "What monsters?" "The ones who take daddies far away from their children." Arthur looked at Martha over his son's head. Her eyes were wet. "But our dragon is very strong," Simon continued. "He's never going to let the monsters separate us." "Never," Arthur confirmed, hugging his son. That afternoon, while Simon was napping, Arthur and Martha sat on the balcony, watching the sunset over the sea. "Do you think we're going to be okay?" she asked. "I think we already are. No rings, no ceremonies, no eternal promises. With presence, with consistency, with a desire to build something day by day. Is that enough?" Arthur listened to Simon stirring in his bed, talking in his sleep about aeroplanes and dragons. For me, it is. It wasn't the perfect fairy tale ending. It was something better. The imperfect beginning of a real family. Hello, dear friends. We've just finished this beautiful story of Arthur, Martha, and little Simon. A story that teaches us that it's never too late to do the right thing. We've seen how a lost man found his most important purpose, to be a father. If this story touched your heart, if you were moved by this family's moments of pain and joy, don't forget to like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear that second chances exist. Your support helps us continue creating stories that reach the soul. Are you left wanting more stories like this? Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any of our new stories. We love knowing that we have a beautiful community around the world. Tell us in the comments, from which country are you watching us? We want to know all our friends who accompany us in each story. Also, let us know what you thought of Arthur's transformation and if you think Martha made the right decision to give him a second chance. We'll read you in the comments.